Business FM.
Welcome back to Mira Business FM. This is DayBreak with me, Inzamam, Rashid. A real pleasure to have you with us this afternoon as we continue our conversations, broadcasting to you live from the Art of Living Mall in the heart of Dubai. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us this afternoon, you can do. Please just leave your comments on the live stream on YouTube. You can, of course, get in touch via WhatsApp as well. Just head to mirabusiness.fm. All the details are there, everything. You can get all the social channels as well. And remember, if you miss any of the shows, including Morning Drive with Tim Elliott, you can catch that on the podcast too. Now, there's some brand new data that was revealed, suggesting that new job creation here in the UAE climbed by about 3% in Q3 2025, the latest data suggesting this, which is essentially continue the country's remarkable growth story. And yet at the same time, companies are still struggling to convert great candidates into successful hires, perhaps. A new report from global recruitment specialist Robert Walters has revealed striking stats. 71% of professionals have turned down a job offer because of a poor interview experience. Not because the role was wrong and not because the package wasn't competitive, but because of red flags in the room or even before they got to the interview. From disorganized interview scheduling, unclear job descriptions, to cultural missteps, candidates are walking away. And here's the kicker. Half of hiring managers say they've never actually been trained on how to conduct an interview. Isn't that scary? So what does that tell us about the gaps in the market and how businesses can turn interviews into competitive advantage? To break down the insights behind this survey and what companies should immediately be doing differently, we're joined in the studio by Zaynah Onye. She's a managing consultant at Robert Walters. Zaynah, thank you so much for joining us on DayBreak.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you in the studio. That's some insane headlines from your report. We'll get on to them very shortly. The latest news is, and let's just look at a broad picture before we jump into the Robert Walters report, is that new job creation up by 3% in Q3 2025 here in the UAE. What do you think is kind of driving that continued growth in this country, and where are the opportunities, do you believe?
Yeah, we are seeing an influx of top-tier talent coming into the region. We have a lot of SMEs coming into the region that are setting up their entities here. So they need their first sales manager, their first HR manager, an accountant in the region. So this is what's really driving these new job opportunities. We're seeing a lot of investment in the transport, energy and logistics sector in particular. So a lot of the roles that we have live at the moment are in these areas.
Does that ring true? Is that what is happening? Are we seeing, job creation increase, particularly in the UAE? Are we seeing the more need and want for roles as well?
Yes, we are. I mean, I see it. I'm working longer hours because of it. A lot of companies are relying heavily on agencies out here to support them with finding local talent in the region as well. They want people who have at least 2 to 3 years of experience in the region and understand the culture and how things are done here. So this is a big push at the moment, particularly SMEs coming out here, setting up and looking for their first sales manager, as I mentioned, to come on board and help them grow in the region. So these are really strong drivers.
And do you think, given like the sheer growth of residents coming now to the UAE and actually residing here, are we seeing enough jobs to go around for all these people that are coming into the country? Are we seeing that, or is it a kind of a tricky slope that we're currently on right now?
So there are enough jobs. Candidates have a lot more choice than they did before. And we see that when we're interviewing candidates, they have other processes going on in the background as well. So they are spoilt for choice now. So we are seeing that, but at the same time, we're seeing a lot of large and medium-sized companies lose top talents due to not having a well-organized and structured interview process.
Let's get on to that, because the research that's been conducted by Robert Walters said that 7 in 10 candidates rejected roles over the interview experience. Were you surprised by that figure when when the research was conducted?
I didn't expect it to be so high, but we do see it quite often. And, what's really important is that when we spoke to these professionals and got the results back from the surveys, the top 3 red flags were disorganized scheduling of interviews. Candidates not having a clear understanding of what the interview process looks like, how many stages will be involved in the process, when should they expect to get feedback on how the interview went. The second highest red flag that was highlighted was not having clear understanding of what's expected from them in the role. So just poor understanding of the role once they've come out of the interview. This was a really popular one. And then finally, I see this all the time when I interview candidates. No matter how big the brand I'm representing, no matter how exciting the opportunity is, they always ask, Zaynah, what's the company culture like internally? And a lot of candidates are coming off these interviews, whether it's on Teams, whether it's face-to-face, not having a consistent message on what the environment's like. Yeah. What are their colleagues like that they're going to be working with?
You mentioned obviously some of them, but what is the number one thing that hiring managers are getting wrong? Why are they getting them wrong? And what is it that's frustrating people that are going into these interviews and they feel that they're not getting what they want out of it in order to take a job?
So the highest, the top red flag that we found was 48% of professionals said that they weren't getting a clear understanding of the interview process. It was disorganized.
Right.
So hiring managers cancelling and rescheduling last minute, turning up late. So that was the highest proportion that we got.
So that's basically, like if they've booked in an interview,
yes.
They don't know the kind of process of, where they're going, when are they going, what time they're meant to turn up, and then cancellations.
Exactly.
The interviewers not turning up as well. So it's all those kind of things. Is that right?
Exactly. And not having a clear understanding of what the process looks like. Will there be 2 stages? Will there be 3 or 4? When should I expect some feedback? Will there be an assignment that will take place? So we would really recommend, in companies to make sure that they are clear and communicate well how many stages will be in the process. One of our findings was actually 79% of professionals felt that for media level roles, 2 stages or fewer would actually be sufficient enough. So it's important for companies to look at how many stages of the interview process do they need to have in the role. If it's a media or junior level, do they need 3? Do they need 4?
I get the whole idea of if you cancel an interview and you've got a candidate, that's just rude. I find that really rude. Also, like if you are late and not on time, not punctual, can't stand that. But there's a part of me which is like, well, okay, maybe don't reveal what the full process is going to be like. If you want to work here, then go through the interview process that we have. And that could be that, we go for a round of interviews, then we go for a second round, then you've got to do a test. Is it not fair that businesses should have the right to go through an interview process how they want to?
Yes, of course. And it differs from company to company. I think it's important that if there are going to be multiple rounds, 4 or 5 stages, for example, you just need to...
5 stages is a bit much, isn't it? That's a lot.
You'll be surprised. But if there are going to be multiple stages, you just need to make sure that you communicate that in advance with the candidate. So you make sure they're aware of that from the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, it's a competitive market. Candidates have other options. If they've got other processes going on at the same time, they need to be able to make sure everything's aligning. So it's just being clear, but also making sure there's a clear objective to why you have a certain amount of stages, and we're not just interviewing for the sake of interviewing.
This shocked me. I think more so than the initial kind of red flag, is that half of hiring managers have no formal interview training. And surely that's like costing companies millions in lost talent, like actual good people who are walking through the door, and they might not necessarily just like the shoes that they're wearing, and they probably have not hired them as a result of that. Actual talented people are probably slipping through the cracks, right?
Exactly. The companies are losing time and money when they're not having the right training involved to make sure that hiring managers are interviewing effectively. And there's so many simple things that you could do. You just make sure they're equipped with the right tools. Simple things like reviewing the CV before the interview, making sure that you understand what that candidate is being interviewed for. many processes, the hiring managers that are involved sometimes aren't necessarily going to be the potential direct line manager, which is fine. But make sure that you've understood the role that you're interviewing this candidate for, so you can ask fair as well as relevant questions to assess their skill set at the same time.
So what is formal interview training like? What does that look like? Is that, something that companies should be doing with people who carry out interviews? What is that?
Yeah, so they can have, if they are doing it already, they can have refreshers. It's sitting down with the hiring managers, making sure that they are briefed on the role, that they're asking the right questions, that they understand how to engage with potential candidates that could be hired, that they're also representing the brand in the right way. Because what you want to make sure is that even though the candidate may not necessarily meet the requirements, and you realize that during the interview process, you want to make sure that they leave that process still having a positive impression on the company.
If half of hiring managers don't have formal interview training, what knock-on effect does that have to the wider company? What impact, particularly financially, does that have to the company itself?
So first of all, you're rejecting and losing top-tier talent in the market that could then go to your competitors. So if hiring managers aren't being supported or trained with the relevant formal interview training, they could be unintentionally rejecting top-tier talent in the market that can go to competitors. You need to make sure that they are, like I said earlier, representing the brand well, but also asking the relevant questions for the role, and that they're assessing them in line with actually what's needed for this position. So that's one thing. Then you've also got brand reputation. We've got over 11 million people here in the UAE, for example, but it's a small market. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows someone who works there. If candidates are coming off an interview process, telling their current colleagues or friends about a negative experience that they've had, or maybe even recording this information online, you're then having it then can lead to a bad reputation in the market, and then it would also discourage future talent, top-tier talent in the market from applying to future positions there.
For sure.
And affect the company's growth overall.
Yeah. You found that 1 in 4 candidates as well decide within minutes that if they want to work somewhere, what are they picking up on so quickly when they're going into an interview process? Like I can't remember the last time I properly walked into an interview process, but what is it that you see that you're like, oh God, I don't want to work here?
I think it's...
Or I want to work there.
Yeah. So one of the common ones are the actual report and the preparation that was done before the interview. It's very obvious when a hiring manager jumps onto a call and they're reading through the CV during that interview, right? And many candidates that I speak to as well, they do mention this back to us when we take the interview feedback. They hadn't read through my CV, and the questions that they're asking weren't aligning to the actual job description and role. And they feel that, maybe they're not respecting my time. A lot of these candidates are headhunted candidates. They have jobs already in the market. They're clearing their schedule, maybe booking time off to come to these interviews. So they want a certain level of professionalism, and they want to see that you value their time. It's almost like a small window to what it would be like to work for that organization when interviews are taking place. So these are some of the things that they spot very quickly. And also,
aren't just like people looking for jobs there and just being a bit too picky? Like you're going for an interview, you want that role, you're probably going for it because the pay is going to be better. Like, why aren't you just being a bit picky? Just get on with it.
I mean, every candidate's motivation is different, right? Some may be more financial. Many candidates now want to be in a company where they can grow, where their voice is being heard, and they feel like they're really adding value into that company.
Yeah.
So they want to feel valued, and they've got 60 or 30 minutes to kind of gauge an insight to what this company might, what it might feel like to work here based on that first interview. And first impressions really stick. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. What other things are kind of people picking up on when, one thing that really bugs me is doing a Teams interview now, or let's just not shout out Teams, Google Meets or Zoom or whatever it may be. even a phone call interview. Like, I remember someone telling me they had like a WhatsApp video call interview. They had to turn on the VPN and all that,
Oh,
which is just a
wow.
nightmare. What is it about kind of video call interviews, which are just so off-putting now? We're way past the years of COVID. You know, we got so kind of comfortable and used to doing that during COVID and lockdown and all that kind of stuff. But now we can physically get to places,
Yeah.
be there in person. What have you found between kind of video interviews and in-person interviews? Was that kind of part of any of your research at all?
Yeah, so a lot of companies are still doing the Teams or Google Meets call just at the first or second stages. And a lot of the time it's just easier and there's a lot more flexibility involved, especially if you've got multiple hiring managers that are going to
Sure.
be joining that call. And there's a lot of international companies here in the Middle East. So you might have a hiring manager based in New York or based in London that's also joining that call. So it's just the ease of it, especially in the first and second stages. And you'll be surprised, it's, I wouldn't say it's detrimental to them getting more of an insight to the company and seeing the value of the candidate. It's more the third and fourth stages that we encourage, and clients are more inclined to have candidates come in the office, meet them in person so they can gauge the personality, the cultural fit.
But you said about first impressions, they're so important.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of feel like at a bit of a loss if I was, my first impression was over a video call. I'm not saying, that I'd go into a room physically and absolutely, gobsmack the people who I'm trying to get a
Yeah.
job with. But what I'm saying is that, I feel like I wouldn't give my full potential over a video call. Does it have any impact, or am I just being weird? Like, does it have impact if you are physically there in person
Yeah.
or on a video call?
Yes, I mean, if you come in person, of course, you're able to really, show yourself. You can get more gauge on the personality, the cultural fit. It's also a chance for candidates to see the environment that they'll be working on, see the offices, people coming in and out. So if there's a possibility to do a face-to-face early on in the interview process, then great. But it hasn't been, not from what we've seen, detrimental to, the process by having Teams or video call at early stages.
We've got a couple of minutes left, Zaynah.
Yes.
I want to ask you, if you're a business leader listening right now, what are the three changes that you could make to improve hiring outcomes for your business?
Three main changes. First of all, is have an organized and structured interview process. That's really important. Make sure that's clear whether the candidate has applied directly to your company or you're working with an agency. Make sure that people are aware of the stages in the process and what's expected from them as well. Just make that very clear from the beginning. Simple things like being on time,
Yeah.
not rescheduling last minute, they make such a big difference. Second of all, provide training for hiring managers. Make sure they are well equipped and they have the right training in place to make sure that they're interviewing effectively. And if you have done it, do refreshers once in a while. Make sure you have refreshers once in a while and monitor the offer acceptance ratio so you can see, what the changes are. Ask candidates for feedback. It's so easy once in a while to ask a candidate that's rejected an offer, what was your experience like in our interview process? What could we have done different? Ask for feedback as often as you can. Finally, I mean, you'll be surprised, but this is something that I cannot stress more. Make sure you are giving timely feedback.
Okay.
Do not ghost candidates. Even if a candidate is not successful in the process, make sure you're giving feedback, whether it's in 3 days or a week or 2 weeks. Make
Why?
sure.
What does that do?
First of all, that candidate might be a good fix for a role that comes up in the future, right? You want to make sure they had a good experience with your company because in the future, there might be a role that is in line with their experience. And if you contact them again, you want them to still be
Sure.
open to having a discussion.
Absolutely. What if
Right?
they're completely not fit for the company? You
You
can
want-
surely.
You also want them to walk away with a positive, a positive image on your company as
Sure.
well. So they can share that with friends, they can share that with current colleagues in the market. You want to make sure they walk away with a positive experience so it doesn't have an impact on your brand image.
We've spoken about company red flags, which is obviously what the research is centered around. What about candidates though? What can hiring managers never ignore about candidates who walk through the room for an interview?
Dress code. Make sure you're dressed professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you're dressed professionally. I always emphasize that with candidates. And make sure you're punctual as well. You know, for a business, the hiring manager's taking out time to meet you and sit with you and walk you through the role and the opportunity. Make sure you're on time.
Yeah.
I always advise candidates, turn up 10 minutes early.
I guess it's very similar from what companies should be doing.
Yeah.
That candidates should be doing as well.
Exactly.
Really understanding, obviously, the job and the company that they're going for a job for as well. It's just so interesting. And you've got some really interesting stats and understanding around hiring in the UAE. Where can we find more information on what Robert Walters has done in this specific report?
So you can go on our website
Yep.
and you'll be able to download the complete interview guide. So this guide will actually help clients to make sure that they are well equipped and give them some advice and top tips on how to conduct formal and structured interviews and get the most out of the interviews when they're interviewing candidates.
Isn't that useful? An
Yes.
interview guide, especially for the UAE. Thank you so much for your time, Zaynah. Really appreciate you coming in and talking about the research that you guys have done and also giving your kind of top tips of what hiring managers can do, particularly in the UAE. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Zaynah Onye, the managing consultant at Robert Walters, with us here on Mira Business FM. You're listening to Daybreak. We'll be back after a very short break.